Hey everyone, Nathan Long here, president of beautiful, wonderful, fabulous Saybrook University located here in Pasadena, California. Welcome to another episode of Saybrook Insights. Today's guest is just someone who makes me smile every time I get to meet her, talk with her, and kibitz, if you will. Katie Horton. She is just an incredible human being. She is a trans woman who has gone through an immense journey, and you're going to hear about that, little bits of it today. Of course, in our short half hour, we can't capture all of it, but it's inspirational. Her story is inspirational, along with her research and also her work as a therapist in the trans community. We need more like Katie out there doing this important work of supporting trans and GLBTQ rights and therapeutic interventions and support for the community. So I hope when you hear this, you're inspired to support and to engage in ways with that community, and certainly with Katie. She can be found online and across the web. Now is more important than ever with the anti-trans legislation that's out there, with the onslaught of issues and challenges that continue to be thrown across trans folks' door and their doorstep when these individuals are working to live their lives free and happy. And it's our job to find ways to be good advocates and support. And Saybrook University is one of those lights, I believe. And Katie is just one of those fabulous human beings who is out there doing the work, fighting the good fight, and making the world a better place. So let's get to it with Katie Horton. Katie Horton, this is an opportunity I have been waiting for. I remember when you first started at Saybrook and the ebullient, I know, and we were in Monterey, California, and you had this light, and I said, Katie is going places. You just are a real joy to know and be around, and I'm so glad you're here today. Thank you for being here.
No, my pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
So, Katie, the question I've been asking our newer guests, and I think this is pretty cool because we like to get a little taste of who the individual was before Saybrook or their professional endeavors. Tell us about Katie before Saybrook. What were some of the formative experiences you had prior to coming to the university?
I can tell you a little bit like how I came to get to this point. Is I was at college, I did management information systems. And so I was in MIS doing computers and database work. They actually canceled my degree my last semester of the school. And I couldn't finish the degree path because of what UCF in Orlando did with the cancellation.
Oh, no.
I actually switched majors and took a 360 and graduated with an English creative writing degree with focus on journalism and fiction.
Whoa, now that's like from one end of the STEM side to the humanities side.
It was one of those things where it was a cancellation. I'm like, well, now I want to follow my passion. I love writing. I love creativity. I'm going to do this. And so I kind of did that. I was going to go into journalism and writing and write novels. And like, that was the goal at the moment. And then I graduated and I went into computers and worked for Oracle.
Wow.
and did database consulting work for 3.5 years. And so kind of went back to that computers anyways, even though I didn't finish the degree, and traveled back and forth from here to Washington, from Florida to Washington, D.C. every week. And so I consulted back and forth. And so I'd fly up there on Sunday, fly back home on Thursday. It was like a 2-hour flight.
That's kind of a commute. I mean, that is a heavy one.
It was fun after a while. I enjoyed traveling. I liked being on the move. And so it was neat. Kind of towards the end of that, there was a huge shift in my life. And I came out as trans. And so that kind of changed a lot of things. Including some difficulties with family, some difficulties with work. I actually ended up losing that job about the same time as coming out. And so there was a this huge shift. I stayed in Florida for about another year and a half and just kind of did job to job. I worked in the card store and some other stuff and just did kind of random jobs, and then decided that I needed a shift. I needed to change a path and like focus on myself and becoming who I want to be. And so I moved from Orlando to Seattle.
That's a big shift too.
Yeah, and just left and sold my house and took my car and took whatever I could in the car, and that was it.
Wow.
And drove across the country with a friend.
Did you have a dog hanging out of the window too while you were at it?
Not quite. I had a friend maybe that, she might have been halfway out there. But we made it a road trip. I came out here and I decided that I was going to focus on transition. And Seattle was a place that had a lot of opportunities with that. I ended up getting a job in security that had insurance to cover my transition. And so I ended up working there for 3 or 4 years and focusing on that and doing some odd jobs on the side. And during that, I did a lot of advocacy work, though, too. I got involved with Gender Justice League. I got involved with some other groups and started working at Pride and doing events and support groups and like building that kind of side of my life up and building community and connection and support.
Wow.
And so when I finished my goals with transition, about 7 years into transition, I was like, what do I do next? And so I really remembered back to those support groups, to facilitating, to like what it felt like to work with the trans and LGBT community and the passion that brought me. I was like, I can see myself doing something like that. So I started researching and I found Saybrook. And like I found a few other colleges, and Saybrook had just opened its hybrid campus in Seattle.
It was like literally that random, kind of random in a way. Yeah. That's incredible. So can we rewind just a bit, because you have some big milestones in there that are pretty hefty. And I can speak a little from experience. We have a family member who's in transition right now.
Okay.
And I know that is no easy journey or path. With whatever you're comfortable with sharing, because I certainly don't want you to feel like you have to, talk about all of it. But how was that transition process for you? What did you experience? What were some of the things that emerged as you were transitioning that maybe you thought went better than expected, and maybe some things that were challenging? Is that a fair?
Oh yeah, definitely. When I came into therapy and after this whole process with the masters and stuff, I decided to kind of make my story an open book, because I work with these communities so much and it's where my passion is. And so I'm very open about my story. I had a very difficult start to transition. I ended up losing connection with my parents. They disowned me. And so I haven't seen my mother in almost 14, 15 years.
Oh my gosh.
And they tried to steal my money and attack me and email me terrible things, attack my friends and my family around me, put me down constantly, ended up being suicidal for a while and leaning on some people throughout that process. But at the same time during there, I found a fantastic therapist.
Okay.
I found a support group and a set of friends that to this day are some of my best friends in the world. And they helped me build through it. I learned that family doesn't have to be blood. I can say, the rest of my dad's side of my family, my grandmother and my aunt and all that side of my family are very, very supportive. I have them very, very close with them. My mom's side of the family, not so much.
Not so much.
But my parents moved to Tennessee and they kind of do their own things. Over the years, I speak to them, but they're not very much into my life. And so that was super difficult. And then, as I move forward, I overcame that by the people around me, the support in my life that are like, hey, this doesn't have to stop you, right? This is, it's hard. It's insanely hard, that your parents don't do that. And a lot of my friends are very angry with my parents, sometimes some of them more than I am. I look at it as like, I'm having a party, I'm living my life. There's a gate. The gate's open. My parents are on the other side. All they have to do is
walk through. Yeah.
But outside of that, like I got very lucky. I found amazing people. I found a lot of support. I I had a lot of incredible experiences that led me to have a very successful transition. And like, I'm living my life and really have learned. I was very introverted and I didn't speak well. I was afraid of being in front of people. I was like all those things in the past. And from your experience with me, I'm sure you can tell that's not the way I am anymore.
No, I would actually call you an extrovert, you know.
I am very extroverted now. And so like that side of me came out through this process.
That's so great.
Right? The side that is passionate, the side that wasn't afraid to be courageous and to step up and to be a part of something, to be an advocate. I learned that through the process of transition.
That's incredible. You mentioned a therapist really impacted you so positively. You know, you had to go through some real hell, it sounds like, and then you found this person. What, in your mind, especially for those transitioning, I'm sure this could apply in other domains, but specifically for our trans brothers and sisters, what would you categorize as the success around your therapy, your therapist? What were some of the attributes that really come forward for you that say this person really helped me, and maybe that could help someone else who's listening? Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I learned essentially in therapy, at first, before I became a therapist, is the connection on like her treating me as a whole person and seeing me as trans and celebrating that, but focusing on me as a whole and really focus on building my own confidence and me making my plan and the importance of me taking charge.
That's very humanistic, Katie.
It is.
I mean, I think you answered the last question that I always give to everyone. That was beautiful. That was great. So if you were saying to, the individual that I in our life, it took a while. There were some bumps in the road, so to speak, in finding a therapist. What are some ways that individuals can find a good therapist to support them during this process that you might recommend?
It can be difficult. And I'll answer some more of this as we talk about my research.
Yeah.
But I think one of the big things is ask a lot of questions. Go in, create an idea of what you want out of therapy. As being trans, making sure that they have awareness and understanding on that, or they're willing to learn if you are willing to work with them. Ask them a lot of questions about how they approach therapy, about what you're looking for. Try them out. If it doesn't work, it's not a big deal. They can help you find somebody else. So finding the right therapist for you and like being ready to do the work and know that it's going to be hard and it's not always a fun process, but it's a process that you can gain a lot from when you're ready to do so.
Yeah, because to advance, you have to do a lot of self-scrutiny and interrogation, right? Yeah. That's really good. Just one other minor, I think it's major, but we'll call it a follow-up question. I won't put a superlative on that. But when you talked about the various groups that you associated with, sounds like you had, in addition to your friend group, which technically now is your family group, right? Which is cool. What were some of these groups that you joined? Are there groups like that nationally? And you may allude to this later too, but it's always worth mentioning a couple times, I think.
Oh, 100%. My original groups were in Orlando. There's the LGBT Center, which is one of the big community hubs in Orlando for that. They hosted weekly support groups that we would do and things like that. They also were our hub to the community and gaining resources. But as far as national, here in Washington, we have Gender Justice League, which is one of the biggest trans nonprofit organizations in the country. And so they run Trans Pride here in Seattle. They're also connected throughout the country. And I know Danielle Askeny is their connection in DC. And so they have a direct connection in DC. They work with HRC. I think they work with Trevor Project, which are both fantastic organizations. I relate with Trevor Project a lot with clients and different things like that too.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, the Trevor Project has some great materials. I know we've referred to those a lot.
Their statistics for youth are incredible.
Yeah. With all of that fabulous history and your amazing biography and your journey, and I think you and I need to spend some more detailed time. I'd love to learn more about that journey.
Oh yeah.
But you found Saybrook kind of serendipitously on the internet, and we had just opened that. What was it? East Side in Bellevue, Washington. We had just opened that campus up. It is no longer operating, but we certainly were there at the time. You found Saybrook. What was it that appealed to you about the counseling program in particular? And for those who don't know, the counseling program, when I started at Saybrook, it was about a year in, and Dr. Preston, who heads up that program, said, I think we can get this whole thing accredited and do a PhD. And I'm like, are you sure? Are you really sure? And true enough, I mean, today it's got a master's and a PhD, both CACREP accredited. But at the time, it was new and untested. So what you talk a little bit about what appealed to you and maybe a little bit about your experience in the program.
Essentially, I started doing research online, just trying to understand what programs were around me. I had moved to Seattle. I didn't know a lot about the education system here. I hadn't been in the education system here before. I began several, and I kind of just found Saybrook on a whim. I started researching, and I think I'd been to bigger colleges, and you're treated like a number, right? And the wording, the language, the vernacular on Saybrook was very personal. It was very creative. It was very focused. It was very inclusive. And so I kept coming back to that. I had questions. There was a lot of too good to be true kind of feelings at first with Saybrook.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, wow, this is very awesome. It's like, I started learning about this humanistic word and this connection on, I'm like, okay, this is very hippy dippy, I like it. What is this? This is like a little college, they got this little school here. They're based out of California. It's a little different process. It's hybrid. What does that mean? All these questions started coming up. So I reached out and just talked to somebody for a minute and asked them some questions, and they were giving me a lot of the information I was seeing and hearing. And I was like, I'm just going to take a leap. And I applied here and a couple other, I think Seattle City or one of the others downtown had a counseling program as well. Ended up getting into both. And then I picked Saybrook because of the interview. My first interview that I had with Jennifer and Dominique and Herdaya and Jane was truly incredible. They were passionate. They were, didn't feel like a number. I felt connected to that interconnectedness of hey, you're a person. We're going to focus on you. We really want to know you. I was in tears by the end of the interview just because it was good. It was wholesome. It was, I felt connected to a group of people I had just met. And so I was very intent on coming here by the end of that.
That is beautiful. I mean, I couldn't put it together in any better way. In fact, that was just beautifully stated. I was remarking to our board. We just had a board meeting, and I had about 2 weeks out from the residential learning experience. I had never seen a closing ceremony for counseling before. And I was driving home the next day, and I had tears streaming down my eyes thinking about it because it was one of the most beautiful experiences. And before folks get oh, it's just, it's there's not much going on other than a lot of emotional stuff. But it was all of that and emotional, that interconnectedness and the inclusivity and the beauty of the human spirit was just really present there. So let me ask you this. You went into the PhD program. You're now a PhD student, a doctoral candidate, I think. What inspired you to keep going, and what are you doing now with research? What's the focus?
I have one more thing that came up to me that I want to say too.
Yeah, please.
Real quick is another thing that I'll always remember, and this is actually about you. My very first day at the RC in Monterey. This is one of the stories I probably tell the most to anybody about when they want to know what Saybrook is you were talking in the Welcome to Saybrook thing about finding your herd. and the connection on like the feeling of being different and like having stripes in a in a place where the other animals don't, or finding it doesn't matter if you have spots or stripes, and that connection that you make, right? And that Saybrook feels like you found your herd.
Oh, that's great.
Right.
I appreciate you remembering that.
It was my first day. I was overwhelmed. There was so much going on, and we were in little groups, and you spoke in that room to us about that. And so like that was another thing that stuck out to me, is like the idea of feeling different. Like it's been 6 years since that, and I still remember that. I still connect about that interconnectedness and about that connection that we make about finding that herd. And Saybrook does. It feels like family, right? It doesn't. It's a different kind of feeling. You my cohort or my family. I've spent 6 years with the faculty I've been working with.
They're definitely your herd, and they better be, right? Yeah.
But then, and that's what led, during the master's journey, to answer your next question about the PhD, is spending time with Jennifer, Dominique, Hidayah when he came in, and Jane when she was there before she left, was amazing. It's, as I progressed, I learned a lot. But I think one of the biggest things out of that program, out of the counseling program, is the self-work.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that like 80% of that program is me working on me. And then the other 20%, the tools and the resources and all the information that I'm going to use when I work with others, right? And so how much I learned about self-care, about what I need to do to work with myself and to understand myself before I can work with somebody else. And as I did that, I was really lucky to work in a work study with the counseling department.
Oh, nice.
And so I worked on the back end with courses, with work study, and worked with Hidayah on that, and helped learn how to do a K-Cup accreditation for the program, and to be a part of the, formatting and editing those documents. And then got to work on the handbook for the PhD program before it became, and helped with that, and got to be a part of those processes, got to see what it was like to be an educator while I was a master's student.
You're talking to the woman who is like one of the pioneers of the PhD program. That's so cool. Yes.
And so when it came around, when I got close to finishing the program, I was talking to Jennifer and another student that was going into the PhD program ahead of me. And they were like, "So you're doing this next semester, right?" And I'm like, "Well, I was going to take a little bit of time off." And Jennifer's like, "You're doing this next semester, right?" And so I laughed because it did fit. It fit everything in what I wanted to do. I fell in love with research. I fell in love with the idea of the education system and like working with masters and counseling and being on that side of things. And I love Saybrook, and like I will say that one of my end goals is to work for Saybrook. And so it just kind of worked out, and I came into this program, and now there's a very good likelihood that I'm actually going to be the first student to graduate.
Bravo. That's great. That's great.
Yeah, and it's reinforced every step along the way, has just reinforced that passion. There's been some rough times, it took me 3 years of writing to get to the point where I am with my research right now.
But so much of that is tenacity, right? It's not about, I had a mentor in grad school who said, it's not necessarily how smart you are. You're smart, but it's about getting to the finish line, right? It's really just taking each step. So good for you. Briefly, tell me a bit about your research, what you're homing in on, where you're seeing some trends, that kind of thing.
My research specifically, my title process is using Q methodology to establish needed competencies for therapists from trans community perspectives.
Okay.
And so basically, I really want to see as an end goal what counselors need to know coming out of master's programs as far as the trans community. Through my own experience in education and in private practice that I've worked in the over the last 3 years, that I see that there's not a lot of proficiency in understanding how to work with this community. And there's not a lot in the school. I'd say Saybrook's ahead of the curve, and it's still very minimal. And so I started looking at research. There's not a lot out there. So I'm asking myself, where do I start? And so I started looking at the idea, okay, well, what if we get the perspective of what is needed from the trans community itself? And so that's where the basis of my research has come from. And I've narrowed down to really getting those connections and creating a set of statements and 2 questions based underneath my main area of research, which is what are trans individuals or trans members looking for when seeking a therapist, and what are trans members looking for when in session with them.
Got it. And sounds like that's not only a contribution to the literature, but it could just blow the lid off the fact that there's not, like, this could be a seminal work in what's needed out there for the trans community.
I hope so. I think, as a career goal, my idea is to continue to build on this research and to, hopefully get to a point where we can set a set of competencies that are needed, that are increased, that are used in these programs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you are on the path, and you're going to be Dr. Katie before too long. I can't wait to welcome you in with that new moniker, and shake your hand and congratulate you on finishing your doctorate.
I'm hoping early next year, so that's the goal right now.
We're going to cross our fingers and keep goodwill coming your way, I promise. So, well, Katie, it's been a real pleasure to talk with you today. We could go on, and in fact, we will, but we're going to find that time. I'm getting up to Seattle, and we're going to visit each other and have a good dinner and talk about your life and where you're going. Before we close, I ask all of my guests 2 questions, and then, of course, the final closing. But the first question is, what does the term humanistic mean to you? And you've already answered it, but let's get take 2.
To elaborate on that, I really come back to the individual as a whole, right? That's when I talk to a client, I always say that I'm going to focus on make sure that you matter here and check in on what matters to you and build that as part of our focus, like when we're building a plan towards your goals for your successes. And, looking at that, connecting to self-efficacy, connecting to self-actualization, and, just really the core foundations of counseling, unconditional positive regard, empathy, and genuineness.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. And those are the hallmarks of humanistic psychotherapy, humanistic principles. For those uninitiated or maybe hearing this for the first time, I think so often the word humanistic can be elusive. It can be a weird thing for some people. It's like, we're human, so what does that mean? But it is about being in journey together and really recognizing the whole person for who they are and working together to help actualize your potential. And you said that so well. So really nicely done. So the last question, what are 3 things an individual can do right now to improve or enhance their mental and or emotional well-being?
I'd say number 1, and I say this to everybody, is self-care. It's something we don't take time for and that we take out a lot because we say we don't have time. And so even a small amount, 10, 15 minutes, I know you're a musician, I'm a musician, I play. Even if I sit down for 15 minutes in the morning or work out for 10 minutes or just stop and read a book for a minute or just enjoy that time, it can make such a difference for our physical or emotional or mental health, especially in the state of everything that's going on, right?
Oh, yes.
And then secondly, support and community. I was recently on the news for Trans Day of Visibility in Florida, and one of the big things they ask is, why is it so important that we hold this? And it's because we need to not feel like we're not alone, right? We have to be able to connect to other people that understand and know what we're going through and that can support us moving forward.
That's great.
And lastly, I'd probably say, to feel hope when you think it's hopeless, right? And that connection that, and I can relate that back to the anti-trans legislation that's going on right now. We see in the news, we see everywhere of how much this is, and it's excruciating. It's insane. I lost my practice in Florida and moved here because of the anti-trans legislation.
Oh my gosh.
But on the other side, the thing we don't see is that there's more people fighting, there's more people advocating than we have ever had for trans rights. And it's succeeding, and it's happening, and it will continue, and we will still fight, and we will move forward, and we will get
have hope. I just had a guest on the other day who you and Eric should talk. He calls himself the Hope Peddler. And because he's an African American man, he's a historian, a well-known historian. And I asked, how do you manage with all the tides kind of like feeling like they're against? He's like, we've been dealing with this for hundreds of years. He's like, and if you don't have hope, you don't have a way to go. And Katie, that was beautiful. I mean, what a great cap to that. And you're absolutely right. And a real credit to you to keep pushing forward into all those in the trans community. There is hope, and there are advocates and support out there. So reach out and connect, as you mentioned before. Thank you so much for being here today. Where can people find you on the web? If they want to reach out to Katie.
I don't have anything active right now. Actually, just my professional page was hacked, but I do have a documentary that I'm going to be posting soon that I was in. That Christopher Brandt at Full Sail Community did a 13.5-minute short documentary on me and my story. I was just in Huffington Post as well as a focus. I was a part of an article called "I Just Want the Life That I Deserve: Trans Youth Open Up" by Marie Holmes.
Great. So you can find Katie at Katie Horton on the interwebs, Saybrook University. Put those together, and I think you'll be in great shape to find Katie, and she'll get her practice up and running, your page up and running, and all is well. Thank you, Katie, so much for being here on Saybrook Insights.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invite.
I am not even sure how to capture the whole half hour other than fabulous. I mean, I moved. Katie, you were fabulous. I hope all of you enjoyed Katie as much as I did. Remember Katie's 3 major takeaways. Engage in self-care, even that small amount. I love her point about it. Just take a minute to read part of a book, or sit down for 10, 15 minutes to play your musical instrument or play a game, but take care of you. Engage in support with your community. We need to connect with other people to help know we're not alone, which is very important. And lastly, I love this. This is kind of an ongoing theme as of late, to feel hope when you think things are hopeless. Dr. Eric Jackson mentioned this the other day when in the previous episodes, one of the previous episodes that you'll hear about being a hope peddler. And I think that's a wonderful way to put it. Katie is full of hope. We should all feel hope when we think things are hopeless. Reach out to your community, hold on, and we'll work together to help make this world a better place. If you want to see the YouTube version, please visit our Saybrook YouTube page. If you'd like to support the podcast, go to Apple iTunes and leave that 5-star rating and review, and subscribe so you can get episodes as they come out. If you're on Spotify, leave the 5-star rating and make sure to follow us. You can, of course, subscribe to us on most major podcast platforms, including YouTube Music now, Stitcher, Pandora, and Amazon, and others. Remember to check our show notes for information on Katie, and we'll have links to whatever she's got available at the time, but she's also got a 13-minute documentary that if you look up her name, you can find her on there, and also through the Saybrook website. For more about our university, go to www.saybrook.edu. Click on Areas of Study at the top of the page and locate the program of your choice to learn more. In this case, counseling. And remember, we have a master's in counseling, which is our licensure-based program, and our Ph.D. in counselor education and supervision. Simply Googling Saybrook University will also get you there. All right, folks, thank you so much. Take care, be well, and let's go out there and make the world a better place.